Welcome, neighbor.
Yep.
What would you like to say?
Yeah, I think that abortion within a certain parameter is morally permissible.
Okay. Well, God decides what's right and wrong, so it doesn't really matter like what you think.
Yeah, but I don't believe in God, one. And then two, we also have separation of church and state. That means that you're going to have to provide some sort of secular reasoning in terms of if you want to impact the abortion debate in terms of policy.
Well, God is going to destroy him if we keep doing ritual human sacrifice, which is what abortion is. You call it like a medical procedure because you want to distance yourself from the guilt and the shame of doing a ritual human sacrifice. But if you keep doing that, God will destroy America or whatever nation you're in.
I think Trump's already doing a good job of that. Again, I don't believe in God. And then thirdly, I
It
mean, you
doesn't
can,
matter.
yeah, I mean, I guess you can morally load the language as
Because
much
what
as you
you
want by calling
do,
it
like,
sacrifice.
why would I give two shits about what you believe when we debate reality. I'm not an anime debater. Can you justify your position that you're in an environment where God has not revealed himself?
Yeah, God hasn't demonstrated to himself to me in any substantial way.
Yeah. Okay, you're just asserting that though, right?
What happened?
That statement is arbitrary, and you can tell me what makes logic real and meaningful that isn't the mind of God.
What do you mean by real and meaningful?
I mean that there's a reference to logic in reality.
Okay. There's a reference to logic and reality. So do you think that like the world is comprised by some like underlying like mathematical reality or logical reality?
I think that the mind of God is the source of logic, and so for you to use logic to deny the source of logic would be a contradiction. So
Well,
you'd
what
have
is
to.
well, I mean, I don't know. There's different sort of theories in terms of like what logic is, right? Like you could essentially ground it in terms of it being intersubjectively agreed upon. You get grounded in some sort of like Platonic forms. Yeah, there's many different ways to ground logic that isn't necessarily like dependent upon God.
Okay, so if you try to ground logic in matter, that's going to entail a contradiction, right? Because logic is unchanging and absolute, and you'd have to tell me like what in matter is unchanging and absolute, that it's not a thing. Same
Wait,
thing
hold
with the
on.
human mind,
Wait, hold on. I never made the argument that logic is grounded in matter, right? I said Platonic forms,
right?
which is right. That's not matter.
It's grounded in Platonic form. Well, that's got other issues. The Platonic forms would be causally effete, and you would have no epistemic access to them. So instead of like anime debating, how about you tell me what in reality, like how do you ground logic without the mind of God?
Okay, wait, just to flag it real quick, because you said it twice. What do you mean by anime debating?
That you're you're appealing to like your imagination.
How am I appealing to my imagination?
The Platonic realm, you wouldn't have any epistemic access to it. You're just making that shit up. You're just inventing it, like Goku.
Wait, hold on. I didn't make it up, right? Like I'm just saying that there are other accounts of grounding logic that don't necessarily depend upon God. What is the contradiction in that?
To do that, what is absolute and unchanging that's not God?
I wouldn't make any heavy claims about whatever is absolute and unchanging.
Okay, so then you're not grounding logic, and what you're doing is you're peeing on my leg and you're telling me it's raining. Right? To answer the question, you have to tell me what's absolute and unchanging, but there is nothing. It's God.
Wait, do you even know logic, or are you just using this as a precept argument?
Do I even know logic? No, I'm not. I don't like philosophy.
Wait, no, logic, the thing that you're appealing to prove God's existence. Like if I were to say, do you know what the truth functional semantic of negation P is? Do you know what that is?
No.
So wait, you don't even know logic, but you're using it to prove God exists?
Yes.
Do you see how silly that sounds?
Well, do you see how you're using logic? But if there's no referent to logic in reality, then logic wouldn't be real or meaningful. And so, do you see how silly that is to deny the revealed referent in the mind of God?
No, the
But
point
then
is that
you're using logic to deny the source of logic. Isn't that silly?
well, no, the point is that if you're using the thing to be able to bolster the argument that God exists, it would probably be good for you to be able to understand what logic is in the first place.
Everyone is using logic. So you have to, if logic has no referent, it's not real or meaningful. You understand this? Do you disagree with that?
If logic is not, well, again, what do you mean by logic is real?
It has a referent in reality.
Okay, language has reference in reality, right? You think language is objectively real?
Okay. What? So we have a word, there's a token, right? And then the token has a referent that it refers to. So like example, unicorn, right?
Yeah.
There's no referent to unicorn. It's just a concept.
Yeah, what is the reference to logic in reality?
The mind of God that's revealed in history and creation. So if you and me disagree, like let's say I argue a unicorn has wings, and you go no, and a unicorn has no wings. There's no way to tell who's correct because there's no referent. So that we couldn't have a real or meaningful discussion or debate about unicorns because there's no referent to unicorns.
I would agree, but I would just apply that same argument to God. I would say that whatever referent that you're talking about doesn't actually obtain within reality. What is the argument that it does?
But now what you've done is deny the referent for logic that you're using, right? Because if God isn't the referent for logic, then something else is the referent for logic to be real and meaningful.
Again, what do you mean by real?
That there's a referent.
What is that? What is that referent? You're saying that it's God, but what is the argument for that?
So like logic is eternal, right? And uncreated.
Logic is uncreated?
Yeah, it's necessary.
Logic is necessary.
You didn't know this?
No, I'm asking you. Logic is necessary, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to have a necessary truth, we need a necessary mind.
Well, no, things could be analytically true, right? Like by linguistic features or mathematical features. But that doesn't tell me whether that obtains like some sort of ontological basis in reality.
Okay. What is wrong with you?
Do you have any arguments?
Dude.
Or do you just do like regurgitated like stuff you've heard online?
Dude. Do you not understand what's happening here? Is this really going over your head? And then you want to do some philosophabble at me? First of all,
you're giving me a philosophical.
First of all, sir, I've emailed with real philosophers with PhDs. You are not a real philosopher.
I never claimed I was a real philosopher. You're giving me a
they
philosophical
don't talk
argument.
like you. You're not talking like a real person.
I'm making an argument.
Sir, you're using logic. For logic that you're using to be real and meaningful, it has to have a referent. I already explained this with the example of the unicorn.
Yeah, I'm saying, what is the argument for that?
I already so with the unicorn, there's no referent, right?
Right.
So we couldn't have a real and meaningful debate about unicorns because they're not real. There's no referent.
I mean, I don't think that logically follows. Do you think that for instance, do you think that people, like you brought up anime debate before, do you think that people argue about like whether Superman could beat Goku?
Yes, that's what you do.
Okay.
That's what you're doing right now.
Okay, do you think
you not understand? Is this really going over your head? Are you really this dumb?
Well, right now I'm trying to track whatever you're trying to get across. You're not saying anything
right.
meaningful.
So remember, we disagree about unicorns. I think they have wings. You don't, right? How do we know who's correct?
I would argue that there can be no correct because there's no, like you said, reference. Yeah.
Because there's no reference. So this is the same with logic. If there's no reference for logic, then we can't use logic in a way that's like we could be correct in an objective sense.
Okay, so you're saying that logic objectively obtains in reality.
Yeah, I have this crazy idea that logic is real and meaningful. You're using logic right now, so you must agree that logic is real and meaningful.
I,
Yet
I think that I think that logic is pretty much predicated on a priori structures of our brain in terms of like the way that we end up framing reality in order to be able to like get particular understandings around
okay,
things.
this is just philosobabble. I don't know what's the point of this.
Well, I mean, you're giving me a
Look,
philosophical
dude,
argument.
look. My position is God is the mind of God is the referent to logic because logic is necessary. The mind of God is necessary because logic is immaterial, universal, unchanging, eternal. God is immaterial, universal. God is all the things needed to ground logic, right? The mind of God. So that's my position. If you deny that, you're saying something else grounds logic. So what is the something else? So you have to tell me what's absolute and unchanging.
Wait, no, I don't think that's a burden for me to say. I think that you still have to give the
Okay.
argument
Well,
for why logic
I
is
don't
pretty much.
understand. So if logic there's no referent for logic, everything you're saying is just noise. It doesn't mean anything. There's no meaning to your words now.
Yeah, what is the argument that logic is dependent upon God?
Why should I listen to you? I just demonstrated that God's necessary for arguments. So now you're asking me to contradict myself?
No, no, no. You asserted that. I'm asking what is the argument for that?
Yeah, but I've made the argument, right? So for ask for a further argument, you're smuggling in that arguments are possible without God. But have you defended that? And
Wait, just to be
you keep using and sir, you keep using logic without reference to my God. Have you defended the ability to do that? You haven't defended any of those things. And if you're not willing to defend your position, then I don't want to have a conversation. I don't see the point of a conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think a conversation would be pretty bad for you, but so I mean, you could run,
Okay.
you could kick me if you want, but
But I
I
just
mean,
want,
at the
can
end
you
of the day,
defend your position that arguments are possible without reference to God and that you can reason without reference to God? Can you defend that? Because that's your position.
yeah, of course, yeah, I can give arguments, right?
Okay, you're going to have to defend it by telling me what's absolute and unchanging in your model, in your metaphysics.
I don't agree that anything has to be absolute or unchanging in order for me to
Oh,
deny
really?
logic in
So
the first
how
place.
do you get an so do you deny absolute truths?
Do I deny absolute? What do you mean by truth?
Now that you want to play the what do you mean game?
Yeah, what is your theory on truth?
No, here's what I want to know. Do you believe that like the law of identity is always true all the time?
I believe that it's true in reference to a formal language model, something that you don't know anything about because you don't even actually know anything about logic, do you?
Okay, but if logic isn't always true, how could something exist without having an identity?
What do you mean by that?
For something to have an identity, the law of identity has to be true. So, how could something exist without an identity? What would it mean for something without an identity to exist?
Okay, so
Are you
just to be
saying that
clear,
nothing exists?
just to be
Nothing.
clear, you're talking about A equals A, or you're talking about personal identity?
A equals A, something is what it is and it isn't what it isn't.
Um,
Can something exist and that not be true?
can something exist and that not be true? So now you're talking about a contradiction?
Man, you process information more slowly than your peers.
You're,
This
you're,
isn't that complicated.
it's not complicated, so I'm trying to walk you through it. I'm
So
trying to
for
understand
something
what it
to
is that
have
you
an
don't know.
identity, there has to be the law of identity.
Sure.
Okay. So can something exist if there's no law of identity and that it has no identity?
No.
So the law of identity is an eternal truth.
In reference to a logic, yes.
Not
I wouldn't use the language
it's
eternal.
an eternal truth. There's no
I would,
and there's no like
yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't use the language eternal. I would say that it's a necessary
it's a
truth. But
necessary truth. Sure,
yeah.
whatever. Okay, so necessary truth, we need a necessary mind. There you go. That's God.
What is the argument for that? That's what I've been asking. That's a claim. I'm asking what the argument for that is.
What the fuck? Because the truth would need a foundation, right? So like Propositions are a mental substance.
Propositions are a mental substance.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if I sign off on that.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, if I could write on a piece of paper, 1 + 1 = 2, and I could write that 3 times. How many I'd have 3 statements, right?
Yeah.
But I'd only have one proposition.
Okay. Wait. What is the point of that?
It proves that propositions are not physical, because if propositions were physical, if I write 1 + 1 = 2 3 times, I'd have 3 truths, or 3 propositions, but I only have one proposition.
Well, I take propositions. My understanding is that they're declarative statements, that you're making a claim towards something. I mean, so obviously it's not physical.
Proposition is the property of a statement that makes it true.
That's not that way. That's absolutely not true. Is
Okay.
can a proposition be false?
All right. I don't know why are you like this, dude? Like,
I don't know. Like, it seems to be the case that I've seen a couple of your lives. I've also seen you get blown out on panels when you're talking to philosophically literate people.
You're just being an asshole.
I'm trying to actually charitably track what it is that you're saying, and all I'm asking for is
arguments. You're not. It's like talking to a brick wall.
Okay, so here's the question:
dude, what you're doing is intellectual heel dragging and dishonest.
Yeah, true.
Why are you being so bad faith? I never.
So here's a question: Is it possible for God not to exist?
How can you please you think you can make arguments without God, but don't arguments require absolutes?
No.
No. But the law of identity is an absolute truth.
The law of identity is a what?
An absolute truth.
I don't know if I would use absolute truth. I would say that it's a necessary truth, again, in reference to a formal language. Wait, do you just not have an argument for your belief? Because I'll bounce if you don't.
Would you say like A = A, that's not always true?
That it's necessarily true.
Is it mostly true, or is it always true?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's always true, again, in reference to a formal language.
But is it always true?
Well, what do you mean by always?
Is it always true in all situations at all times?
It's true in every possible world.
Is it always true in all situations at all times?
It's true in every possible world.
Is the law of identity always true in all situations at all times?
It's true in all possible worlds, if that answers your question.
Why are you so why can't you answer questions?
Because you're using loaded language, right? You're using eternal. You're using always. I don't know what you mean by always. Do you mean eternal by always?
I don't understand why. It's I care about the truth, and it's just weird to talk to someone like you that you just do not give a shit about truth.
Well, no, you're making a claim, and I'm just asking for the argument for it. And you keep dancing around that fact.
I don't understand how could you make an argument without an absolute foundation in the mind of God? That's what I keep asking you.
Yeah, that's the claim, and I'm asking for the argument for that.
I'm wondering, how can you make arguments without an absolute foundation in the mind of God? How do you do that?
Because one, I don't believe in God, right? So if you're saying that God is necessary for logic, which is your claim, I'm asking, what is the argument for that?
Yeah, I don't know. How do you make an argument without the absolute mind of God? Because an argument would assume an absolute identity statement. What would be the absolute identity statement? That's not the mind.
So all right, I got you. You just don't have an argument. All right. Gotcha.
Well, I'm just curious, because to make an argument, you would need an absolute identity statement to impose and secure it. Oh,